Estate Agency X, the UK's #1 estate agency podcast discussing the future of estate agency, entrepreneurship and business, with hosts Mark Burgess and Rob Brady.
Welcome to this episode of Estate Agency X. On this episode, me and Rob are talking to Mike Symes. Mike is a published author, he's a public speaker, he is the ex-marketing director and vice president of the Bank of New York Financial and current CEO of Financial Marketing. And so he's going to talk to us about the difference between branding and brand, how to stand out in the marketplace, and how agents can actually get to the stage where they work with their perfect clients and charge their perfect fees. Okay, Mike, thanks for coming in.
Delighted to be on the show. Thanks very much.
So before we sort of delve too much into the world of marketing and branding and all of that side of things, are you all right just to give the listeners a little bit of a background on yourself?
Absolutely, I'd be delighted to. So I'm Mike Symes. I'm CEO of Financial Marketing. Previously, I was head of marketing and vice president of Bank of New York Financial. And what we believe in at FM and what I've always believed in throughout my career is really focusing in on what makes a brand make a difference for your business. How does it stand out? How do you stand up in the all marketplace and effectively create something that enables you to ignite your brand, illuminate your points of difference, enable your messages to spread like wildfire? And that's what we're all about as an agency.
Love it. There should be a lot of gold for agents. They struggle with most of those things, I think, wouldn't you say, Rob?
Yeah.
Certainly in terms of how to stand out, you know, when you've got an industry whereby essentially they're middlemen.
Yeah.
And more we're reaching a world where technology is replacing middlemen. I think a lot of estate agents really do struggle with the idea of how will I really make somebody decide to work with and use my company over somebody else if all that they know is to say these are the features of what we can do for you. You know, I can take photos of your house for you, really nice photos, but you know, obviously Rob's can also say he takes really nice photos, and okay, well I can do a video then. And then if that becomes popular, Rob's going to say, well, I can also do a video, and it becomes an endless stream of how will I ever find something that Rob down the road isn't going to steal off of me? Is that something that you find a lot of companies in various industries face that problem? Or?
Absolutely. And I think the world to an extent is moving towards disintermediation, but fundamentally the value that the channel brings to market is immense. And it's that value add that actually needs to come through in the brand as well. So starting with the core essence, the values of the business, really getting into what is distinctive about you. And very often that's something that is emotional. So the benefit really of conducting a brand workshop with so many different estate agents is sort of really understand just how different each one of them is in terms of their brand and their ethos and what they want to communicate to their customers. So there was one particular estate agent I'm thinking of that had a real heart piece about what they were doing. It's clearly the core essence, and the lady in question drew a heart actually on the page to identify what made her estate agency different from others. Yeah. And it was a real home from home. Yeah. She was inviting people into sort of the hearth really of the home, and that really made a difference, having the heart and the hearth sort of really came across. There were other people that were really technology driven, and it was all about how Iceberg Digital effectively is at the center of their dial, but that it was this technology piece that they felt really made them stand out in the marketplace. And other people were saying, well, it's about effectively me being a celebrity, almost a quasi-celebrity in my local environment, and actually building that personal profile. So within smaller firms, that blend, that mix of personal brand and company brand or corporate brand is one that is fascinating to me.
Do you think it's a problem? Sorry, Rob, I'm taking up all the questions. This one before I let you jump in, but like, do you think it's a problem that sometimes we'll get on to difference between brand and branding in a minute. Maybe you can pick up on that, Robert, afterwards. But like, do you think it's a problem sometimes that a company tries to be too many things? Because quite often, I've looked at far too many estate agency websites. Right? It's like I've probably looked at more estate agency websites than any other websites that you can possibly imagine, and on most of them, it says something like all of those things that you've just mentioned. We are the heart of the home. We blend technology with tradition, and if you go to extremes with it, like, and we can deal with you whether you're 18 or 35 or 65, whether you've got a flat or a house or a caravan, and we can do anything for anybody. Please give us your business.
24/7 hours.
24/7. Technology, and if you don't like technology, we don't use it, and if you do, we won't. And do you think that sometimes people just you're doing everything, which means you're doing nothing?
Yeah, I do. And I think one of the issues is that people confuse tools with brand, and brand is all about having that core essence that you are completely distinctive in your market, that only you actually show up in the way that you do, and that's about making some sacrifices, and brand does not come without a sacrifice. And a lot of people find that quite difficult to get their heads around, but actually that's one of the most important parts of branding, that it's like the story that I told at the workshop, where there was a chap by the side of the road making these beautiful elephant figurines with just a penknife and scraps of wood that they found at the side of the road. And the lady said, from the coach that came out to see him, said, it's amazing what you do. How on earth did you do that? And he said, it's very, very simple. I just cut away anything that doesn't look like an elephant. And that is effectively what we're doing with brand. Anything that doesn't look like you and your brand needs to be avoided completely.
And I guess a great analogy for that guy as well, it's your story, so I might be completely wrong, but would be, imagine if he can't carve anything else. Yes. He's brilliant at elephants. Yes. But if you said to him, like, oh, that's amazing, like, could you carve me this thing? No, I can't, because I could do elephants. And he'll get everybody that wants to buy a wooden elephant, but he won't get anybody that wants a wooden horse, for instance, because his horses look like cows. and it's such a great point. Like, I think I learnt the same thing in business, that, like, it's almost that instead of trying to appeal to people, you're trying to not appeal to certain people. And in doing so, you'll appeal to a group of people.
Absolutely. So the first part of what we call the 4 R's is that you've got to be remarkable. You've got to be relevant. You've got to be reputational, and you've got to be real. But that remarkability piece, you mentioned cows. Seth Godin's Purple Cow is a great example of that. It's not just something that you see and completely ignore. It's remarkable. You remark upon it, and that's what a great brand should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, sorry, Rob, I'll let you jump in.
No, it actually leads on to that, though. So when you're talking about maybe being a bit more authentic and bringing out not just the colours of a logo and the brand essence of why you exist, a lot of agents struggle with the I don't know, how far do I go when I decide to go beyond the logo to being authentic? So if you've got anyone listening out there who might be just going, right, okay, we're more, our blogs are centered around just our logo and our brand, and it's very generic, and it's very just 3 types of this and 4 types of that, and then they decide to actually, no, we want the public to know a bit more about who we are as a company. Have you got any guidance on how someone can do that without, I don't know, going too far? Or is there a possibility of going too far with your authenticity? So, for example, I don't know, getting on camera and talking about your favourite pizza and your favourite food, or what pub you like to go to, compared to more stuff related to being an estate agent?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the relevance point in the 4 R's that I was talking about, that everything you've got that you do has to have that element of relevance. And it's not just relevance to you. The most important thing is the relevance to your target audience. And I saw from some of the brand books that were created, and one in particular that was talking in some real detail about the personas that they were looking to target. And I think getting down to that sort of level and saying, this is not all about me, it's all about my customer. So you're talking about, really getting to know what your competitors are doing in the market, really getting to know what your customers doing, and actually understanding very, very fundamentally what the capabilities are of your organization in terms of what you're looking to achieve in the market, rather than just putting yourself in that pigeonhole really of I'm an estate agent, or worse still, I'm just an estate agent, which is a real indictment of how an estate agent can effectively be such a conduit to somebody finding their future. It's where they spend their time. It's the comfort of that, and that's an emotional piece, and that's a really fundamental piece about estate agency that is, to an extent, different from other companies and types of businesses, but actually is absolutely at the heart of estate agency. That it is about that emotional relationship.
I think there'd be a lot of estate agents listening that would think to themselves, okay, what are my competitors doing in the marketplace? Well, my competitors are trying to sell houses, and I'm trying to sell houses, and we're all trying to sell more houses than each other, and I am just an estate agent. And they haven't, perhaps they need a little bit of insight or a light shining on, like, but you're not. I mean, so to play devil's advocate, let me ask, what's the problem? What's the problem with me just saying, well, I'm here, right? I'm an estate agent. I've got an office. I've got I pay a monthly fee to put houses on Rightmove. So why wouldn't I want Rob's house and your house and Mark's house and everybody's house? Like, what's the problem? I might as well be in it to win it. What's the problem?
I think the fundamental issue is that, rather like the writers of Funky Business, that the world's full of similar people doing similar things, expecting similar results, and they don't necessarily all achieve them. And therefore, that ability to stand out, and certainly that ability to get an emotional connection, is absolutely fundamental to being competitive in any market. But particularly in estate agency, we talked about that aspect of disintermediation. It's a competitive world. How do you get that assignment? How do you get that instruction? And that's going to be, a very, very important point. And I know particularly that your listeners are already on the journey of being engaged in being different in the market and actually standing out.
Yeah, and I think when someone talks to me about that, I say to them, like, well, that's all great then. I mean, and you always get the fees that you want and the customers that you want, and everything goes exactly how you want. Well, no, but that's just business, isn't it? Okay, and so how are you what do you want? Do you want better fees? Do you want nicer people to work with? Well, that would be nice. It's always nice to work with nice people. Okay, and what are those nice people like? And slowly you start realising, because you're anything to everybody, you're the wrong thing to certain people. Yes. They're not actually looking for an estate agent. They were looking for somebody to, I don't know, do it cheap and quick and not pester them much. But actually, it turns out you really like talking to people and you like going around and seeing them every week. And this person hates that, and you don't get on. And guess what? If you'd have said that at the beginning, they wouldn't have come here. And someone else who's having a bad experience somewhere else, because they're not getting that, perhaps would have come here. And everybody, even though you're obsessed with this idea that, not you, but the estate agent, you're obsessed with this idea that, there's too many of us in the town. Well, there's too many of you to be all bland. But if you recognise your sector, which you have whether you like it or not, you have certain people that you do get on with and that you do like working with, then there probably isn't too many of you in the town. Maybe every business has got too many competitors, but you can all segment yourselves into your own little areas, and actually you wouldn't mind going, you know what, we've had a good chat, Mike, and no offence, I don't think I'm the agent for you, but I do know one who does work the way that you're looking for, and his name's Rob, and I can put you in touch with him if you like.
And that's an important marketing point, not necessarily a branding point, but certainly a marketing point, in that these days we talk about co-opetition. That you're not necessarily always in competition with everyone. It's not a fight. It's not a war. It's about everybody engaging in reciprocity and helping one another out, because the next instruction could come from a non-customer related referral.
Yeah.
It could be another estate agent that actually gives you that referral because you're better equipped to actually handle that.
How crazy would that be? But some agents, I think, would still be back at the stage where they think, well, there's barely enough listings already. I'm not going to be giving any of them away. Maybe you can relate with that, Rob.
Yeah, I think I think I had that more when I worked in an agency, more on the lettings and sales, and it was crazy the fact that I would act as like a buying agent for landlords, and there'd still be funny the fact that I would want to buy one of their properties.
The estate agents would.
Yeah, and you'd think, like, you haven't got to worry about finance. You haven't got to worry about where they fall out of bed. Like, it's going to go through. So you could try and sell it to someone else you might know, but if you sell it via me, and it was just a weird thing that it was still like this underground competition of like, somewhere down the line you're going to try and screw me over in this. And
so you're just to let me get this right. You've got someone who's one of your landlords.
Yeah.
And you've seen a property that's for sale with another estate agent.
Yeah, and I used to do that a
taken
lot.
him along and said, buy this off of this estate agent, and that estate agent's just gone, what's the trick?
Yeah. Or I've even just turned up. I've turned up and said, right, I've got a client. Like, they live abroad. They're buying multiple properties. I'm the person doing it because ultimately I need to let it out afterwards. So I'm not going to buy any old dog.
Yeah.
And they're going, but what do you need back from me? And I'm like, well, just nothing. Like, just a sound investment. So the client wants to build their portfolio, but there'd always be this weird friction of why are you doing this and why are you not trying to sell them something of your own.
So then if an estate agent is sat there and they're thinking to themselves, okay, I'll go with it, so yes, all right, I am one of those people that has a website that says we're a perfect blend of technology and tradition, and it says exactly the same thing as everybody else, and we do have a mishmash of marketing material, and yes, we have fonts and colours, but sometimes the wrong colour gets used, sometimes the old logo gets used, and someone's sitting there and they're thinking, okay, so how does this start? Like, I've always, I'm thinking of them. They're sitting there thinking, I thought the brand was just, my logo, my colour, what my shop looks like a little bit, and that's about it. Like, what would you say to them?
I'd say that branding is really the soul of the organisation. It's way beyond logo, it's way beyond identity, it's way beyond image, albeit that all of those brand codes are absolutely essential. So you take, Virgin, for example, you're not going to see a blue logo on a Virgin plane. It's just not going to happen.
Unless it's Virgin Blue.
Indeed. Unless it's Virgin Blue.
But no, I get what you're saying. Yeah. And that's a whole nother brand, right?
Absolutely.
And they did it because it's a whole nother brand, and they didn't want to bastardise their existing one.
Exactly. So consistency is a really, really important point. So I saw a excellent presentation by a high jumper, and he'd reached incredible heights, without any pun intended, but he'd achieved some incredible things. And the way in which he did it was consistently showing up every day. So for 4 years before the next Olympics, having the same breakfast, having the same routine, even down to the same celebration. He's sort of so in the zone, doing that every single day. And branding is no different from that concept, on the basis that you are looking to have that consistency show up in the same consistent way.
In terms of the way that your advertising looks and the way that the world looks at your company,
and,
I mean.
Well, as Michael Eisner from Disney said, it's the product of 1,000 gestures. It's every single thing you say. Right. It's the way you act in thought, word, and deed. It's all of those things. So brand really comes through as a DNA. Or to use another analogy, it's a stick of rock, and every single thing, it's permeated. And one of the interesting things that I noticed when we were talking with the estate agents at the workshop was that they were actually really interested in, how do I actually embed this with my employees?
Yeah.
How do I get them excited about my brand? And that was brilliant to hear as a branding consultant, that you actually get that feeling that matters to the business owners, that they want that thought, word and deed thing to absolutely come through. And Steve Jobs said, you're not going to get a lot of people to remember you, so you've got to be known for something. You've got to be, it's got to be really clear.
Yeah, that's a great point. And where do you think the line is then? Because some of these estate agencies, they're very small businesses. Maybe 5, 6 people that work in an organisation, all very very much like a family unit.
Yes.
And they maybe haven't ever had these kind of rules, and so John comes in and he's very polite, but he sort of does it his way. And Sue comes in and she's great, but she has her ways and quirks of doing things. As a business owner, sometimes you can feel a little bit intimidated by that and sort of think, well, I can't tell them, I don't know, how to dress, or I can't tell them how to answer the phone. If I tell them all how to answer the phone, they might turn around and say no, or they all might leave, or where do you start with that as a company, moving from a company where you might have walked in and gone, yes, this is all very nice, but there's no brand here, to convincing everybody in the team that this is a problem we all need to get on board with?
So it's about engaging with them, and it's about involving them. So what could we do better, or what could we do differently? What could we do more of to actually live this brand?
And first of all, I guess figuring out what is it we actually stand for. Who are we? And then would anyone notice that if they walked in here? Like, if we've all agreed we stand for making life easier for home movers, would anyone notice that if they walked in here? Oh no, hold on a minute, it's difficult. I can't even get through our front door because it doesn't open properly.
That's right. Or
there are
boxes.
Broken.
There are boxes in the way.
Yeah.
All of those things about making it easier.
Yeah.
And actually, making things easier, making things effortless, is just as important as having innovation.
Yeah.
And particularly in this on-demand sort of Netflix-driven world where we can access everything immediately.
Yeah.
It's so important that effortless is a part of every aspect of the customer journey, and the customer journey is incredibly important in estate agency, as you know, and you've been spending a lot of time enabling people to customize those journeys using technology.
Yeah, we had I remember me and Rob had an article a few years back now, so it was 5, 6 years ago, where we wrote an article about what is your buy now button. Like Amazon done that amazing piece of innovation, which it doesn't even sound that crazy now, but it was innovation at the time, whereby buy now, you click it, it's done, it arrives the next day. And up to that point, on every website in the world, buy now meant you're now going to be taken to a page where you fill out a form, whereby you then get errors on the page, and then this happens and that happens. And one click, arrives the next day. And it was like, every business should think about this, shouldn't they? What's your buy now button? What's the bit that makes people go, thank God for you?
What's quite interesting is what you've just said, like a recap of it. So what I notice a lot of agents out there, I don't know if it's a question we've already answered, but a lot of agents, they have the shop front, they have the logo, they have the branding, they have all that same copy on the website. And the next level, they try and become different by maybe going, okay, we need to look out there, and someone says, I've got a free downloadable copy of this, and then someone else is like, I'll have that, and I'll have that, and I'll have that, and I'll have that. So all of a sudden you've got 100 different agents downloading the same piece of copy to put on their website.
Content-wise.
Yeah, content-wise. So, and then the other part, I always find that some agents are maybe following others out there that don't necessarily represent with their brand themselves. So, for example, I've seen someone charging 2%, but they sell £5 million houses, and in our neck of the woods, we're selling £150,000 houses, terraced houses, and they're so far-fetched with how they look and the type of clientele. So what would be that first step for someone to start to try and find some element of their identity without obviously, being, our workshop pretty much covers that for a whole day, so you can't really elaborate on all of it, but what would be that first initial step when they do sit down with the team and go, right, what do we stand for? Like, have you got anything that maybe 3 questions they should ask themselves, or?
Certainly, yes. I mean, one of the key things is, what do we most want to be famous for?
Yeah.
You know, that's a really good initial question, because you're looking to get into what's going to make the biggest difference for our business, for our customer.
And what if they just were too basic with it and said, selling houses?
Yeah.
And, you know, so the thing is that, you know, what we do is the thing that very often screams out when you have any workshop, before any sort of precursor. After people understand that it is effectively about the soul of the organisation, something that literally runs through you, it's DNA, it's everything you stand for. It's about having a core essence. You look at Disney Corporation, for example. I mentioned Michael Eisner earlier on. Disney Corporation is about being magical. Volvo is about safety. Harley Davidson is about a liberating experience, being able to ride through a country town on a Sunday morning in a leather jacket and scare people.
It's such a brilliant example because, like you say, Volvo have got competitors and all of them could sit down and go, we sell cars. It's like, no, everybody sells cars. Everybody sells houses. All of your competitors sell houses. So that's not going to work. Like you say, just go into the DNA of it, right?
Absolutely. And BMW specifically sell joy.
Yeah.
And Helmut Pank basically said, this business is all about cutting out anything that doesn't look like joy to the consumer. And that's, you know, a fundamental part of it. So whilst they're both very safe cars, you're also going to get this issue where people say, well, hold on, we're all of these things. And again, it's about that sacrifice. It's about absolutely drilling down and saying, this is what we're all about.
Cutting things out, as you said
Yes.
before, like that is the tough bit.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to list off everything in the world. It's quite hard to cut out 99% of it.
Yes, and there are effectively 2 ways of, you know, differentiating yourself. One is on price and the other one's brand.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a brand, to an extent, it's always going to be a bit of a race to the bottom. How do you win your business? Well, it's on rate, it's on price, it's on...
I've got a question on that one, though. Do you think, like, it doesn't have to necessarily, because you worked with businesses outside the industry, do you think a lot of people struggle with, if you show your true, authentic self, you might not enjoy what is returned back? You know, so obviously a lot of people struggle with, like, say, masking mirror society and all we live in. Do you think a lot of brands do struggle with, or business owners you've struggled with, when you go, what do you stand for? It's like, well, I don't really want to dig deeper into that. Like you said, I just want to sell houses. Do you ever come across that a lot?
I think there are certainly examples of that where that's happened, and where there's a disingenuity, if you like, between how the owner actually shows up in the world and what the company is about. Yeah. There are all sorts of disconnects like that. But part of my role as a brand consultant, as a marketer, is really to make sure that it is remarkable, but it is absolutely relevant and real. Yeah, real. You know, and reputational. So everything that you do as a business owner, you're representing your brand. And particularly when, you know, most estate agency brands in the smaller independent market are all about the individual and their personal brand, and getting that across. That's where there needs to be a real connection between those 2 pieces.
It's very hard to get something, like you said at the beginning, it's a very hard thing to get comfortable with. I can remember, you know, my business journey was one whereby we wasn't familiar with any of this, and we had a few products that we sold to estate agencies. That's what we did. Any estate agency that might want those products, we would sell them to them. And even if someone had come from another industry, if we could have found a way of making that work in order to make the sale, we would have somehow tried to sell the product to them as well. And then I sort of discovered that, you know, through mentors and self-development, that business, pretty much all successful businesses have a predictable path. We've brought that down now into a estate agency and found estate agency is the same. There's specific things you can do in a estate agency, and we've implemented it in estate agents and built over time, proven that you do these things and eventually you reach this amazing place. do you think that there's a struggle that goes on with people's head around that idea of predictability because they think their business is unique, like the opposite of what we were saying before? Like they struggle to find the uniqueness, but they won't accept that. Well, all businesses do these 18 things, and then they're more likely to be successful. They're sort of like, oh yeah, but mine's a bit special. I don't need to follow these brand. If everybody followed these brand rules, or everybody followed these sales rules, or everybody followed these marketing rules, would be the same. But actually, what happens in there is that you find if you can identify what you aren't, as you said before, if you can identify what you aren't, who you don't serve, then all of a sudden the whole thing becomes a lot clearer. Like the marketing side of things, in order to get the right leads, an estate agent at the moment would go out to value pretty much anybody's house, pretty much anybody. They would see it as a total waste of time to not go and value that person's house. But then they would come out and question, like, I just don't get it. I don't understand why these people are not buying what we're offering. And it's like, well, would you say your marketing's not your marketing is just attracting anybody who wants to sell a house, and then you've got a specific thing that you go and say to them, and you're surprised that half of them are not interested, but they didn't know anything about that when you did the marketing, right?
And a lot of that's about emotional connection, isn't it? And Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, about level 1 or system 1 thinking, system 2 thinking, of most people are actually making decisions based on system 1 thinking, which is intuitive, which is emotional, which is really, really fast.
That's how we need it to be, right?
And that's how we need it to be. And system 2 thinking is slow, sometimes very protracted. It's system 2 thinking is all about being considered and actually having intent. And you want to break past that. And Wonderman did an excellent survey which showed that 68% of people in B2B buying situations made their decisions on an emotional response basis.
Wow, that's amazing. I'd be surprised even if it was as low as 68%. The other 32% probably just thought that they did it the other way. It's true of everything, isn't it? Like, why do we buy things? It's slightly different if you're thirsty, so you buy a drink. Okay, fair enough, survival instinct and all of that sort of stuff. But the majority of the rest of the stuff in the world is, who knows why we buy any of this stuff? Like, there's no real correct answer for any of it, is there?
But all too often, brand will be at the centre of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can completely agree with that. So, if as Rob said, obviously, like when we do our brand workshop on the accelerator program, it's a full day. And what I loved about that, the same as you, was that at the start of the day we had a room full of estate agents that were just estate agents that were all the same, and at the end of the day we had 15, 20 different companies that were all completely different to each other. And as things have gone on from there, they've become more and more and more and more different from each other. But somebody's sitting there now and they're thinking to themselves, okay, so I get what you're saying so far. I understand that my company should have a DNA as to what we are actually about when it comes to estate agency. Is it around speed, ease? Is it around helping people to avoid catastrophe? Is it around personal service? Is it around cheap fees? It can be around cheap fees if they want it to be. Is it around cheap fees? Is it around, whatever it might be, experience, the heart of the home and all of that sort of stuff. And then once I've figured that out, then I should try and think, what can I do in my company to make people feel that?
Yes.
Right? The way that we answer the phone. If we're, as an example, you tell me if I'm right, if we're a company that's about efficiency, those phones need to be answered within 2 rings. It's a non-negotiable.
Absolutely. And these things do become non-negotiable.
Yeah. And we can no longer have that telephone system where people go on hold, press 1 for this, press 8 for that, and sit on hold, and no one answers the phone for 6 minutes and then goes, yep, we're all about efficiency. Like that's just going to blow up in your face, right? So getting their team on board with it is about sitting down with their team, getting them involved, together finding out what do we really stand for here, and trying to realign them when it becomes too. Is the word basic? That you used a different word. The what they do, when it becomes too much about what they do, when the team keeps saying like, well, we're just here to sell houses, get people the most money, like all the things that every other estate agent would say. Somehow they need to keep bringing them back away from that, right?
And this is the difference between a table stake and a brand. There are lots of things that we have to do just to be in the market.
Right.
Anne Livermore of Hewlett-Packard said that effectively everybody is building the best server in the market. That's the price of market entry.
Right. Exactly.
So everybody's great.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing the right things. But that's not getting an emotional connection. This is just the physicality of delivery.
Absolutely.
And the physicality of delivery isn't necessarily going to be the differentiator. Funnily enough, as you mentioned with Amazon, that's part of their value proposition stack.
Right.
But effectively what we're talking about is having that core essence. Let's say it's about being magical. And what does being magical look like in terms of your value proposition stack, in terms of tangible things that you do? Brands seem really intangible.
Yeah.
And actually, it's the tangible things that you do that actually stop people, make them think, hopefully on system one.
Love it.
But actually cut through and you go, do you know what? I want to buy from that company. I believe in what they believe in. And it hits me at a heart level as well as my head. And
absolutely.
I want
and
to engage.
It can't all be logical stuff.
No.
It can't all be, well, if we can get their house on the market as fast as possible and get them under offer for the best price, then they'll be happy, right? No, that's all just logic. Actually, you might find that somebody who went on that market, it took longer to get it on the market, it took longer to get it under offer, but weirdly, paid them a visit with the office dog at some point. There's no science behind it. They just ended up happier.
But what it does show is time and care. And these are things you almost can't put a price on. Yeah. It's a huge value add. I mean, I know the estate agent that sold our house recently, last year, almost to the day, was incredibly personable. And you felt that you could talk to them about anything, let alone estate agency. And we actually had a really good rapport. He's obviously brilliant at what he does. Yeah. But he knows how to sell family houses. Yeah. And he's brilliant at it.
Good, great question. I was going to ask another question, but great question on that, because that's very relatable now. So when you came to sell your house, did you automatically know who to go to, or did you get a couple of around?
We had a really good steer in terms of other people within the area where that agent was really well known. Yeah. They spoke about him very, very highly, and he was all about the journey. So it's not necessarily just about this house. It's about your children's houses, about other houses that you might want to buy. And it's about being a friend within the community, effectively.
I'm guessing he wasn't the cheapest.
Not necessarily, no. I mean, it wasn't of a much-ness in terms of pricing, but I have to say the value add that they brought, and it wasn't just him as well, and that's another point about this sort of brand embedding. He selected people that, I'm not saying they're in his image, but they are friendly, they are approachable, and they will chat. So, we had great fun on some of the viewings, and we actually just hit it off with the people that were there, and that gives you an enormous sense of comfort. Yeah. And as I say, if 68% plus people are making emotional decisions, ours certainly was, as well as the sort of logical one on the basis that, yes, we've got evidence, and that's incredibly important. One of the things that you tend to see handled quite badly by a lot of organisations is the proof points as to why I should buy from you. Yeah. And having that evidence in terms of third-party referral of people, not just saying you're great as an estate agent, but actually saying this is why they were great. And so video testimonial, as well as videos showing the houses, the stock as it were, are really important. So part of the stock in trade actually is to have those brilliant testimonials, those great case studies. And there is such a variety of different people that buy houses that to get, if you like, codify the types of clients that you have and actually having representative case studies that will actually really resonate with people, that's fantastic.
It's such a key point, because we have a part of our company called Neuron that makes websites. And what it does, when someone visits the website, it looks inside the CRM, the lifecycle CRM system, to see what it knows about that person, because it's tracking their movement on the website, on cookies and all that sort of stuff. And it has a whole list of stuff that they'll probably have answered at some point. And then based on their current situation, let's say they're on the market with another agent, the system would know that, and the testimonials that they'll see will be people that were on the market with another agent that weren't that happy and moved to this agent, or they haven't yet put their house on the market but they're out there looking for a property. Testimonials will be about those kinds of people. So it's so key what you're saying. What I find quite often with estate agents is that they do all of the hard bit. The hard bit would be contacting clients, asking them if they'll come in on video, and they do all of that, but then they just do a random open testimonial. Because they don't have a brand, they're not pushing them towards answering questions for their specific clients. Absolutely. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's absolutely vital. And one of the things about that is it gets around gets out the personality of the agent as well. And I think that's a very, very important point, that you're actually dealing with a human being.
Yeah.
And that's all part of the proposition.
Yeah.
You can't sort of separate the individual from the business when it's an independent business.
And done right, if you get your brand right and then your marketing, the job's kind of done for you, isn't it? There is no real sales to be done, just an explanation. Because if I say, we are an estate agency that really specialise in helping small families move, and we're geared up for it, because we know the hassles that small families face when it comes to viewings around schools and messy houses and all of that. So we have all of these products in place to help you out, right? When we do block viewings on a Saturday, we give you 4 cinema tickets to all disappear for the day, and we take care of it, and then we put the house back to how it was before. We do all of this stuff. And if you really doubled down on that, and you then made your marketing around that, and you then made your testimonials around that, and then somebody, a small family, read all of that and then made an inquiry, the job's done now, right? There is nothing difficult to do at this point. They're not going to say, oh, well, can you do it for £500? It's like, no, we can't, because they've already, I was saying the other day at one of our other workshops, people don't go to the Apple store to inquire about what does the iPhone do. They go there to buy it.
Yeah,
the marketing and the brand works.
Yeah, no one asks what Coca-Cola tastes like.
Yeah. You just go to buy it.
Yeah,
the salespeople in Apple aren't salespeople; they're like order takers. That's brilliant. Rob, you got anything that you want to finish up with?
Just to clarify on that, what was nice about listening to that was more going back to the very basics of expectations. So most agents have on their website trust, professional photography, so the never-ending list, which is, like you said, turn up to the plate. That's expected.
Table stakes,
isn't it? Table stakes. That's expected. So, what goes beyond that? And I see it working a lot. Off the back of what you were just saying there, we have clients I work with identify if a family are inquiring about selling their home, the content they receive is based around how we specialise in selling family homes. But if it's a probate, it's a different type of journey, different type of testimonials, different types of stories that relate back to how you specialise in it. Whereas going back to what you're saying, it's just not like we just sell any houses, because an experience of selling a family home to experience of selling a probate to experience of selling an investment property are 3 completely different journeys than just selling a house.
Yeah,
absolutely. So there's a certain amount of having to be chameleon-like, because you are, as an estate agent, probably serving different markets. But actually, the core essence of your brand needs to be unchanged with that, but nuanced to these various markets. So, I think it's incredibly smart that technology can differentiate the look and feel of the website in accordance to who's looking. So a probate sale compared with a family. That's a fantastic tool to be able to nuance your marketing and get really, really smart with it. What a brand does is take away this mystique about what you're all about. This isn't about a mystery about what you do, nor is it blindingly obvious that we're an estate agent. This is about actually having your own voice in the marketplace and actually asking the customer to share their voice in the process.
Well, like I was speaking to a client the other day, and it really resonates because they've got like a sales arm, a lettings arm, and they deal with student properties. And the biggest struggle they had was, how do we market to those 3 different markets? We're marketing to students. How can we go to a website? How can we do content that a salesperson, doesn't resonate? And I said, when you come back to the brand, their brand truly believes in delivering a great customer experience, but also selling and letting very good quality stock. So I said, like, you could be a student landlord or student, letting agent, and you can only specialise in selling good quality, reputable, and that becomes then back to reputation of what you stand for. So we don't take anything on. If you're a landlord who's below this, we don't take it on. The same as if we sell a property, we only deal with maybe business professionals, but it all comes back to the brand. So it could be multiple messages, but it resonates back to the same message about what we stand for.
It's being known for something.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Love it. Brilliant. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much indeed.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this Estate Agency X podcast. Can you make sure that you're actually subscribed to this podcast channel if you liked the content? It helps us massively to get better guests, and it just helps us generally. So you might think you're subscribed, but just have a double check, whatever your podcast platform of preference is, that you're actually subscribed, and then that way we can continue to grow the channel and get better and better guests for you.